introductions. I'm Roger Rayle, Chair of CARD and Chair of Scio Residents for Safe Water.
Vince Caruso, board member of CARD, also a board member of Scio Township Hall group, and coordinating member for the Alice Creek Watershed Group.
Governor-elect Caruso, faculty member of the University of Michigan, president of Colorado. Should we jump back to?
Sure. Gerald Tiernan, Michigan Department of Environmental Quality.
Kathy Knowles, Scio trustee, CARD rep.
Kevin Thompson, local resident.
Jim Schultz, concerned citizen.
Max Pettibone, local resident.
Bob Bailey, Scio resident.
Dan Hamill, project manager for the DEQ on the Gilman side.
Shauna Milkey, Ann Arbor resident and secretary for CARD.
Okay, good. We have some minutes.
So I move for the board to approve the minutes from the November meeting.
Second.
All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah. Any opposed? All right. Thanks. Come on in.
Thanks for
We
doing
just
that.
got-
Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. There's agendas at the foot of the table, and Diana. Yeah, I know. Sorry for the last minute change, double changes.
So everybody knows Diana and Jeff, right? I'm going to try to keep my update brief, but probably weigh in later after the DEQ update.
Are you going to say anything?
That's brief.
Yeah, it's really good.
You hit the nail on the head, Roger.
Yeah.
That was brief.
Actually, I'm going to save my comments about the EPA quarterly report until after your update, so you can have a little interaction on that.
Send it out.
I know, I saw it. I'm just trying to figure
Did
out-
everybody get that from Dan today, his quarterly report to the?
You may not have. It's a selected group that I send it out to. So everybody in here may not have gotten it. Some individuals may not have gotten it. They aren't on the original list. So it will be posted as, I send it to be posted on the webpage. I have a copy of it here tonight if someone wants to they want to pass around and look at it. But why don't you keep going, Roger? You're on the.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate what I said at the last meeting, that the dioxane seems to be moving in really narrow channels at high concentrations, at least at Whitmer Road. And I suspect that that's true as it goes all the way out to DuPont Circle and areas like that too, because how can it be 8,000 parts per billion here and still 2,000 parts per billion out here? And we have no identified pathway of how it got there. There's no intermediate sampling at those same depths. And as you recall, last time I showed some cross sections here of Wagner Road where there were, seems to be channels moving through Wagner Road at different elevations. And some of those elevations did not have monitoring points after this. So that's still a concern. The other thing to remember is that you don't get 2,000 parts per billion out here by having different streams of dioxane come together at lower concentrations. If you have a stream of dioxane, it's going to want to go wherever water goes. So it's in the groundwater. It's not going to get higher concentrations as you go out. It's going to get less concentrations as you go out. And we don't understand enough about these narrow channels to know how dioxane got to this area up here. I tend to trust whoever drew these maps because it's showing a northward direction. It's not showing a curve here. And the latest plume maps look pretty similar to this. So, in fact, this is the latest plume map right here. This is the one I just made from the October submittal of the third quarterly set of maps.
How fast do you think it's moving to?
Not very fast from
It's
what we,
slow,
from the
right.
sampling we have. But if you go over here, away from the red area, we're seeing hits out here.
Better new.
130I, for instance, and this isn't, there it goes, okay, this
Oh,
is
yeah.
connected. So this is 2017, well, 2018 is a little higher, so I think I sent those out in another packet, but I haven't updated these graphs yet because we don't have all 2018 yet. So that's still an ongoing concern, things that I pointed out last time. If anybody has any questions about that, contact me.
It seems to me that's why one needs to eventually think about a literal picket fence approach rather than strategically selected every half mile or mile.
Or quarter mile even. I mean, it's not, these have pretty narrow channels.
Yeah,
You can
that's
miss
why
it even within a
talk
couple
about
hundred feet.
Well, that's what Larry Linky said.
ridiculously.
They're like spaghetti.
Yeah,
So I want everybody to remember that. That's probably the reality of this. Last time Dan said you're gonna ask him about the GSI 9801, if there were any sampling available for that.
They didn't get back to me. I
Okay.
asked them some other things, so I don't have any update information.
Right.
What else did you ask for?
Now you made me, threw me off from my.
He's gonna cover his.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
report
sorry,
later.
I thought it would be simpler than
I
that.
also asked
Yeah, I
Kevin
just-
for an export from Rockworks, so we can actually have the names on the points that he exports.
Mhm.
Is the way
You'd
I
have-
exported,
he's
it
gonna
didn't
to
have
do
the
that for
names.
me. I
with
can't
it.
get in and do his rock.
Exactly.
Reports.
So that's an outstanding item. I did put down here review concerns list, but again, I think that's something, if we do it at a regular card meeting, it might be too much detail. I don't know what people feel about that, having this 100 or 70 concerns, just go through them one at a time and discuss them, or do we want to have a separate subcommittee meeting just on that?
I think it would make sense to have a smaller meeting and whoever would be willing to help plow through that.
Right.
rather
Well,
than
you and I,
taking-
we're talking about it, but anybody
Yes.
else that wants to go through some of the
Yeah,
details?
'cause but, you know, depending on scheduling.
Yeah, my schedule's gonna be a little messed up for about a month because I'm getting some kidney stones removed a week from Thursday.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, you might feel better after that.
It hasn't bothered me, but this one has gotten to be pretty big. It's like 3 centimeters long now.
Yikes.
Embedded, it's been there for 20 years, but there's 2 new ones that they're concerned about that are in the same kidney. I thought everything was fine.
Oh, well, good luck.
Yeah, it's just an overnight thing.
Roger, what boring did you just quote that to me about the asking? Was that 9801
9801.
2?
GSI 9801. Because 02, we got the readings for those off of one of the cross sections, or a couple of the
Okay.
old cross sections. 9803, the same way, we got a couple of those. But 9801 have never shown
Yeah.
any
I
reading.
got
And
information
so if
on
they were
02,
doing
but I
readings,
didn't get.
as you, you'll cover this in your quarterly report, where they said they did the readings so they could put in the horizontal wells. They wanted to know where the dioxane was. Well, if that was the purpose of these borings, they must have done sampling to know where to put, what elevation to put the wells at. But they haven't told us what those samples are. So I hope the shallow sampling of their site doesn't take this many years to be released. What else have I got here? The other thing, there's not any other jurisdictional people here, so I can't ask for it. But one of the things, you know, every year I do this Google Earth mashup, and a lot of the layers come from publicly available information. You know, the township and city jurisdictions, the water bodies, the streams and lakes. So there's several things, and one of the things I have an inquiry into the city, and indirectly I go through the county, is are there any changes to those static levels? I know there's going to be some changes to the boundaries because the city's about to annex another 90 properties or something. So one of the things I want to do with my annual Google Earth mashup is update those other layers.
Yeah, they did annex last night. That round went through last night.
Did it? Okay. So that's one of the
That wasn't,
things.
that wasn't all of them, right?
It was
Just a subsection.
89 of
Eight of them? 89?
89.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jeff, I sent an email over the weekend to whoever's in charge of that data catalog page,
All right.
asking them that question. Or, you know, is there something that tells when the last time these layers were updated, and even suggesting that maybe they want to put another column in their table to say, give that information, somebody can just see.
Is that for the county, GIS?
There's both city and county data.
Okay.
So I figured I'd ask the city first, and they might know when we get the data.
I've got a request in for some of the other layered maps that they're required by law to create every year. They have like a parcel value map and all these other things, and they're all stacked up. And so I'll be in there later this week. I'll check into it.
Because I mean, that's public data, but we don't know how old it is.
Okay.
And I'd like to have the latest stuff. It might be they've updated it, but I don't want to download them again if they haven't changed. I want to make sure I just have the latest copy.
I have some concerns about the floodplains and the overlays that we're using and so on. And so that's one of my first goals, is to dig into all that and make sure that we have those overlays, especially on our zoning maps.
Yeah, the floodplains and the flood, what's the other one? Floodway, floodplain. Those look like they were image copies of a hand-drawn image file instead of a shape file, because they were fuzzy. And that's the one.
On the city's website?
Huh?
On the city's website?
Yeah.
I don't see that, but I mean, I think they're from the GIS, so, but that's.
Well, whatever they are, I
I'm
think it's
looking
I think they were,
They're saying,
I have them on here, so.
well, they may have been updated in a different website.
Water,
It's on actually-
underwater features.
I didn't bring my laptop. Whatever.
Do they even have Wi-Fi in here?
Yes,
Is there Wi-Fi?
yes, there is, but there's an access code.
Yeah, I see that.
It's right there.
Oh. Let me see our GIS.
Anyway,
Yeah.
they, those kind of things, I want to make sure I get the latest copy.
It's so slow.
I think I'll sign into that one.
Yeah, go into that one, it's faster.
And the other, and for the township, and Bryce is out of the room now, but for the township, all of these township parcels that could have water or have water, have wells. That's another layer that I'd like to make sure is up to date. So all of these guys here. And a similar thing for the Arbor Township. Because these are the ones that are going to get hit long before it makes its way to Barton Pond. So I want to make sure, one of the things, and one of the additions I want to make is which ones of these are vacant parcels. Color code those a different way. Not that it's any less important, because somebody
Could buy it.
could buy it and
Build
put
it.
a house on it, maybe,
Yeah.
or put a well there. So that's one thing that I want to make sure to get updated. And the other thing we talked about at the SRSW annual board meeting last week is succession planning. How do we keep all of this institutional knowledge aggregated in one place and accessible and updated for the duration of the cleanup? Because we have stuff that the DEQ chooses not to keep. How do we keep this for the local community? Should it be under a card, expanded card?
Washington County.
Washington County. But everybody, the problem with putting it in any one governmental unit is that it might be influenced by the policies of just that one governmental unit and subject to that one governmental unit budget stresses and things like that in politics. That's why CARD has been so effective, is that we've kept everybody together at one table, getting inputs from everybody. And especially the citizens, because the citizens always taken the lead on this. In fact, that's, if you trace it back, that's how CARD originated. It was the citizen groups that led to the IPC, and the IPC led to CARD. So one of the thoughts I had was to reiterate each of the governmental units reiterate their resolutions supporting CARD. And maybe this time provide some funding so we can have a paid staff person do some of the things that I do. And get that standard operating procedures in place so that we're not relying just on DEQ reports or just on fall data, that we can do all the aggregation and stuff that I've been doing with help from everybody. I think we really need to think seriously how we're going to do that. If not, even if the EPA doesn't get involved. I mean, we still want to have that kind of local resource in place, no matter what happens, because otherwise bad things can happen, as happened when this originated. You know.
So does, say for example, Scio Township or Arbor Township have servers that they have space to store stuff like this?
I don't know.
Pardon?
We have a server, I know that, but
You're
I
not
don't
sure how
know.
much space is
I don't think you want to lock into any one server.
No, I'm just saying we could duplicate it, have a mirror.
You could, yeah.
So you could have it in Washington County, Scio Township, or City of Ann Arbor, or whatever. I just don't know, data storage has gotten cheaper by the day, and so, you can buy a terabyte storage for like $50 now.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
storage, I don't know, as long as it's not paper form. Paper
right.
would be harder to do. I think digitally.
Well, Bryce said that he had room in the
Okay.
expansion for like my paper archives.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Well, that's, I'm talking digital. But,
Yeah.
paper is also.
Well, the DEQ has a lot of their stuff digitally, but not all of it. At one point, they were talking about, you know anything about this, Jerry? That talking about scanning the whole instead of just part of it?
Yeah, we'd love to.
You need a grant to do that?
We've been looking at potentially using students to help us do that. So, but they're not necessarily all that keen to have the students actually doing the scanning. So
Right.
it might be where the students are more or less getting the file over, and then one of our people actually pulling the trigger on the scan, indexing and putting it all in.
Yeah, the indexing is the key thing.
Yeah.
Google was big into scanning pro bono.
Yeah,
Well, that's only when
we've
they're-
never had good luck with scanning with third parties, so we
Okay.
we just don't scan third
You don't want to
parties.
trust it, it's not good enough.
Our secretaries are required to check every page of every document they scan, and you just can't get that with a third party. You just can't, they won't, they don't. So we've abandoned any hope that a third party. We hire it internally, train internally people, so.
Roger,
So-
5 more minutes here.
Okay.
Well,
So that's one thing, and then, so the sustainability is something I want people to think about. One of the thoughts I had was that for each governmental entity, and this was
Sorry, Max.
because the county, when the county had requests for permits for the shallow wells on the Gelman parcel. We didn't find out about that till like a year later. Had we known that there were well permits pulled, I think CARD could have maybe intervened and maybe made sure we could get more information about where are those samples, how deep are they, where are the results, what's the work plan? Things we still don't have and aren't likely to get anytime soon, the way things are going. So if each entity made that clear to all their departments and all their staff, that if you see anything that looks, smells, sounds like Gelman, let us know. Because this happened in the past when they were going to low-level people and asking for sample wells to be put along Miller Road, for instance. When there was a resolution to not take that approach, some of it didn't make it down to the staff people. So that's another way to help it be sustainable. Does anybody know anything about mass replacement? Anybody talk to him? I gotta talk to him.
We know something about her.
I mean, there's a person designated, but not here at the meeting.
Right.
You talking about Missy Stoltz?
Yes.
Well, they kind of reorganized Matt. Matt kind of got reorganized.
So Matt retired now, right?
He's retired.
Yeah.
Friday was his last day.
Yeah, Friday.
And so I'm not sure what my relationship's going to be with this body. So I'm happy to, in my quasi-official responsibility, to do what I can to be that liaison with the city until we figure out what's going on. But
Well, we should have somebody from that office,
Yes.
sustainability office, come, like Matt had come.
Yes,
To kind
I
of
agree.
answer questions and go back to the city when there's questions and then bring them back to the meeting.
Right.
Yeah, these
Yeah,
things
that's a
are very
very useful-
interconnected, of course. And
So did she get assistants hired for her yet?
they have 4 people in that office already.
They
Plus
got 4
staff
people
support.
now? Yeah, okay. So
So-
she may not come, but one of her
Yeah.
people may go.
And there's nobody from U of M here today, right? Like there was last time.
That was a
Who
quarterly
was that?
meeting.
The reason I bring that up is, do you know who Hill Auditorium's named after?
Arthur Hill.
Do you know what he was?
I went to Arthur Hill High School.
Yeah, so that's high school name, he's from Saginaw.
Yeah.
He was a lumber baron, as well as, politician and that. Do you know what else? And he gave most of the funding for Hill Auditorium.
We were the lumberjacks.
And that's good, yeah. So you know all about this.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the things they did when Hill Auditorium was kind of deteriorated is they raised money to put it back in grand form. Do you know what else he gave to the university? Saginaw Forest. That's why it's called
Makes sense.
Saginaw Forest. So my pitch to the U of M was going to be, we can't let Saginaw Forest deteriorate like Hill Auditorium deteriorated. We've got to bring it back to its grand form.
That's wholly owned by the university, right?
That's right. And it's,
I'll talk to somebody about that. I know somebody in development pretty well and family friends.
yeah.
That's an interesting
I
pitch.
was gonna talk to Schlissel
They used
about it.
to- I think they still have a caretaker on that side.
Yeah, I believe so.
That's what I thought.
Are there any codicils on Grant of Saginaw Forest?
It's so long ago, like 1918. that'd be a good thing to research. Would you like to do that, maybe at that lake or something?
It might be on the.
Well, I know the biological
We'll make it
station,
on that.
the biological station up near Pillston
Yeah.
has a lot of consoles. that-
Oh, really? Okay.
Absolutely, and every once in a while, somebody tries to
Do
work their way
something.
around it,
Hmm.
and they get their hands slapped.
So, yeah, the Sierra Club.
Literally, I mean, they,
Sorry, we're kind of straying from the agenda.
Guys, it's time switching
if
down
you void the
to,
grant, you lose the land.
That's a good point.
Roger, it is
Anybody
time.
knows anything about that, let
Stan's
me know.
time now.
So that's all I have.
If you want to talk more, Roger.
I'll talk
No.
in response to your,
He took his full 20 minutes, so now it's you.
Okay. The first, my first bullet is I sent out this morning the quarterly report. It's our third quarterly report. And I say quarterly report is because that's what the EPA, it encompasses May through September. Right? You know, and it took us a while to get it, so I made it through September because I had data. And so, again, it went out. I have one here. If you want to take a look, some of the information that was included is we have update on PFAS sampling.
I have it here.
And also I want to point out that Gelman, at my request, at some of the issues and questions that we were getting, at my request, I asked them to provide response to some of the questions and issues.
You
And so-
want to bring it up on the screen?
Okay. And so, can I just scroll, you know, it's a format, most of the format's the same. Again, I discussed what was sampled, how many wells, and then also what was done. I've added the line item dioxane removed. I get all this information from their reports, so I just
The
want to make
monthly reports.
their monthly reports, NPDES, and then their analytical, and so
How much did they pump this year?
I don't have a running.
Are they still at 1/3 of what they're?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing about right around 475 gallons per minute. They had at one time had been up around 1,400 plus.
So they're about a third
Well-
of what they could do.
Yeah, I mean, third of what they had done in the past. I don't know if their
I think they have a
system,
permit to do.
right, but I don't know if their system, you know, it's also dependent on the infrastructure. So,
Right.
but they're doing about 475 gallons per minute. They've been doing that since for some years, a couple years now. They reduced the pumping back in
Right.
2012, 2013. So,
So you note that in this, I haven't read it yet, but that's noted in here?
well, the average is noted in here.
Okay,
So they, you know,
okay, all right.
and then how many million gallons they pump for this duration of May through September. And
Okay.
again, then we did have some surface water sampling. I went through this and I just, you know, included it. Surface water sample we did in September. Here's the results, you know, summarized, so people that, you know, weren't had any of the meetings, you know, I gave them the information there.
You're gonna provide the backup data for that to show the XY, where those are located.
I'm working on that, Roger. I just haven't, you know, finalized it. I believe, because I'm putting it into the database, you know, there's the XY in the database, so I'm making sure that it's the same as when we've sampled in the past, so I just, you know, I truthfully have to go back and look at my note to see where I am on that. Just the court action, we're still in the confidential negotiations. That's still in court, so we have no update there.
Can you see the screen from where you are? You might want to set on that chair.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, how come it's not doing it? Okay. There it is. And then the issues. At the end, I had a section for previous issues. And this is where one of the first issues is our PFAS question. And so we've basically been, you know, they've informed us that they did their research and did not identify significant use of potential PFAS containing chemicals, you know, in their process.
Can I stop you right there and say, what is significant?
We've already obtained a sample of the discharge.
No, but they didn't have any significant use of PFAS. But that implies that they had some use of PFAS.
Roger, they did not have gallons, if you want to say, right now.
Yeah.
I've asked for a summary so I can put it in
I mean,
my.
significant compared to dioxane, or significant in that this would be enough to contaminate water?
No, significant
nearby?
from the standpoint of how it's used in the industry, where significant hazardous substance use it was not. It does not believe that it was a significant hazardous substance use of that chemical.
So we don't have that, definition.
That's
if you
my
want to say.
word, yeah, I mean, they have a list.
They haven't
of what
defined
they
their
said.
use of significant.
So, but we
I
wanted
think
to make
that's
sure we
important
weren't
to know.
saying that it was none, because I think at one point there may have been some communication that we sent out that said none, and it wasn't that
Yes.
there was none, it was
Yes.
that there was limited amounts that they did find in their
Records.
in their records, but that there was no significant disposal of it, there was no significant use of it, they haven't found a process in which it was used in.
So I've requested a summary from them, and when I get the summary, it'll be
So-
made available.
But on top of that, their discharge has been sampled last week along with sweepsters, so.
At one point, weren't they denying any use? Didn't they deny it initially?
Well,
No.
before they did their record search, they
They've
said
always
they
said they
didn't
never
think,
they ever
they
used it.
didn't think they used it, but then they did the record search.
Mhm.
I mean, literally did their hard copy.
They went out to this area that they know
You
they have all
know,
their hard
their
copies.
barn
and
on
they
the
went
property
through
that
there.
had all the historic records. And they went through that, and after that, they had said, well, you know, we had some potential chemicals listed in that record search, historic record, and, but not a significant use. And I said, okay, I'm gonna need a summary of your review and what you're talking about.
I'd like to see quantities.
Well,
It would be nice to, it would be nice if they said less than,
uh,
20
again,
gallons.
I've asked them for a
When they
summary.
pull, yeah,
You know,
they're
doesn't
supposed to
seem
give us
bad.
a summary with all the
That
information.
would be
Okay.
nice.
But on top of that, we had the line of evidence that, we had the sampling in the surface water that wasn't showing that the discharge at least appeared to be sending PFAS in there. We've since DEQ has collected an official sample of the discharge.
Oh, they're out.
That we collected, not.
It has no
collected.
PFAS.
Well,
Has
but-
no PFAS.
No, the sample it's been collected. I know no results of any.
Okay.
of
It was
it.
collected
It just
last
went in.
week.
Oh,
Yeah, so
So
it'll be.
but that's of their discharge,
Correct.
which is from wells that aren't necessarily where the PFAS might be.
Potential, yes.
Has any PFAS?
Well, I mean, the PFAS isn't gonna move dramatically different than the groundwater, you know that, so I mean, unless their system is treating the PFAS before it goes out, which,
Like, not likely.
But unless the PFAS was mostly in the burn pit.
well, when we're finding it, sir, we are finding a significant issue, not that you had it in a small burn pit, you wouldn't pick it up already, you would have picked it up in the, you'll pick it up in the effluent, you have to. And that's how we're finding them, we're finding a lot
If
of.
it's made its way to the purge wells, yeah.
So,
Let me finish before I answer your question. Let me finish up here, and then we have some
Well,
additional.
One more thing, Rita had a question about this specific thing. Did they use a certain kind of filter? What was that?
So-called non-potable.
Yeah.
So with the paper they made their filters out of, some filters come non-wettable, meaning they won't absorb water for various reasons, using labs or hospitals. So if it's a non-wettable filter, it probably, good chance it could have PFAS, because that's,
it could have been silicone-based as
Silicone-based
well,
is
though,
another-
and
Right.
they've always said that
Go with the cheapest.
the process that they were using wasn't heated, and typically the
PFAS is heated.
PFAS was used in the heated, when you were heating it, and the other silicone was used when it wasn't heated, and silicone you could get a lot easier and a lot cheaper because it was being made right up the street versus a PFAS, which that, if I remember right, that leads back to one of those original patents that was found that Gellman had, and it specifically talked about the PFAS and the fact that they could use an alternative one, and that's when we learned about some of the research behind what types of PFAS versus a silicone-based.
That's why I asked
agent
for
was.
a written summary.
Yeah.
So they quote what is significant, what's your definition of, PFAS, what PFAS was identified, in your records, so we have it as part of our record.
So we'll put that on a pending thing, because we're waiting for some results.
But I also, in this report, we also discussed a little bit about some of the work around Gelman in the Huron River watershed. And then I gave the link, well, I don't know if you want to go in.
No, it's all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
There's a link to the Huron River watershed on MPART. You know, it's the MPART information of what the DEQ and the MPART is doing. So that would be take a look at that. That would be useful information, or, you know, informative.
And there's a public meeting about it.
Yes.
Which isn't in here, but it's December 18th.
So I have a question. Has the DEQ found any PFAS anywhere on what's coming from Gelman at this point?
No, we only.
Sorry, I forgot I didn't hear the question.
He said, has DEQ found any PFAS coming from Gelman at this point? And
No.
Any of
We
that
haven't.
fluid?
Well, we only had that one, again, that's the only sampling we have other than the discussion that they're saying they don't use
Okay,
it.
so there's
And
one
the fact that
sample.
we've already done a lot of surface water.
Just one, and it's not even,
venue? One sample in
That's
venue?
what
At
he's
this,
saying.
at this
Sorry,
point, we've
I just-
taken, yeah, that's fine. At this point, one sample has been taken to the effluent of their system.
with no results yet.
Directly from their discharge. There's also been other sampling in the Huron River watershed
That- yeah.
throughout that stretch that's been for PFAS as well.
And that link will take you to some
That
of that
link will take you to the
information.
whole Huron River watershed page that is set up from MPART that has everything that we've been doing in there.
But there's been no sampling of shallow groundwater for PFAS on their site.
Not that I know of.
No.
We haven't and they haven't that
haven't
they've
done-
ever told us, and there's no reason to believe they would.
Where was the one sample taken
The
Outfall.
The outfall.
from?
Of their
Okay.
treatment
It's
system.
from the outfall of the treatment system, correct. We asked them, they quickly provide, we asked them within
Our water
24 hours,
division
we
did
got
that.
it. Yeah,
Our water division, because they're the ones that handle the NPDES permit.
So when will you get the results of that?
I
A
don't
week or 2 or 3 or?
No, it's more than that. I want to say it's typically been 4 to 5 weeks for those to run.
Parts per trillion.
Would their treatment
Oh, yeah.
system remove PFAS?
That's one of the things that we're very curious about too.
Yeah, there's-
You might
been
ask them to
discussions.
do a sample of the red pond.
Yes, we should, we could make recommendations.
Yeah. I'm not saying we.
Because if it
Let me tell you
does,
that
we
that
would like
has
to
been
know
thought
how
of.
good does it work.
We are anticipating,
More sampling?
more sampling,
Oh, yeah.
you know, because our.
I mean, the
internal-
watershed itself is going to have more sampling
Right.
done,
But
so.
it's an industrial site, it makes
Mhm.
sense to test it, because that's where we're finding PFAS. And-
With specific uses we are, correct.
Yeah. Well,
I just want to caution behind this shotgun approach, because if we just pick every company that ever could have used it, the map is just one big glob. And it doesn't help you try to define
But Jerry,
bigger issues.
you're testing the effluent after it's been treated.
Yeah, by a system that's not necessarily set up to treat for it. If
Right.
we're not finding it, we're all the better anyway, so we're not
So
finding it in the
what's
watershed.
one more test of the red pond?
Well, what's one more test of anything? You could ask that about anything.
Because
I
that's
could always
before
spend more
treatment.
money, I could always spend more
Well,
money.
wait a minute.
This
You're
is just
spending
right.
taxpayer money for this?
Yeah.
Asking anyone to spend money on sampling is spending money. I mean, you can smile
The
and say,
MPART
hey, that's
is the one
hilarious, but
sampling
I don't
was
think it's
done.
funny. It's not like it's a bottomless pit for all of us. You
You gotta
yourself
get
need
the
money for
EPA in,
this
'cause they
group.
will test and they will.
So don't
bill
act
for it.
like one person's money is just wasteful.
Well, this is just
Well done.
upstream of the Barton Pond.
And we have lots of sampling throughout that watershed and continue to sample.
Yeah, okay.
And trust me, if we thought it was Gelman, we'd be doing more at this point. And they did, they wanted to double check, so they did the effluent. Which would be the biggest risk associated with that property right now, would be that 8 million gallons of discharge water.
So-
Jerry, go ahead.
No, I mean, if you have
What is the
questions.
December 18th public meeting? This is on PFAS?
This is the Huron River Watershed Council is holding the meeting. I'm sure it's on their website. I also have a link if you guys,
Okay.
there's a brochure made
So-
up.
That's the one being held with the county
Yeah.
public health department.
Right.
Yeah, the
It's a
county,
collaborative,
us, yeah,
right?
there's a bunch.
It's an
Yeah,
informational
okay.
meeting. yeah.
Correct, yep,
City of Ann Arbor's involved too.
correct, yep.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, from my understanding, everyone's been invited and most people, agencies have agreed to.
Unfortunately, not toxicologists.
It would have been really good to have definitive results of PFAS for that meeting. Now we can say, well, the one sample, it's not It hasn't been detected.
We don't have
Well, we don't even have
data
that
back
because
yet.
that one sample was
Yeah, we don't
back
know.
from the lab.
It's not come in.
We don't know right
How long does it take?
I just
We
asked
just,
them.
we
4
just said we
weeks.
think
Oh,
4 to 5
okay.
weeks is typically what's been happening.
All right. so
And it was
that's-
collected in conjunction with, it was done at Gilman, but it was collected, there's other, they went around and took.
Yeah, that initial group, they also took sweepsters, and that was more or less a review back of all the other ones that we had done, and the fact that those two hadn't been done, and they should be done because they filled the data set for sure, that we've sampled all of those discharges around there.
So like I said, there, I do have a link up to that Huron River watershed PFAS information. Just moving on into the, I don't have any updates on the on-property investigation.
This was the
This was the issues.
secret sampling that Danaher's doing on their own property without a work plan shared with.
It's
any
still
public
not
entity.
been disclosed.
I don't have any information, yeah, I don't have any
Have they
information.
promised the information at some point?
They've always promised the information.
No, date certain?
No.
That's why I said.
Okay, and then basically, this is a change I wanted to point out is, this is leftover, and there's some historic, some discussion or questions came along, and so I asked Gelman to take a look at those questions and provide me their interpretation. So in this report here, you'll see where it says Gelman provided summary. I've taken exactly what I got from them on two different locations.
So no comments on that? Can you go back to that paragraph?
Roger, I haven't looked at it in the sense of making our comments yet. I've just presented
Wait,
it.
you said this is the final quarterly report.
No, I said this is the third quarter of quarterly reporting.
It says final. December 2018 final.
You're where?
I mean,
It's
it's
the
not a
name of the
draft
file.
version, it's the final third quarter report, it's the final version of that report.
Yeah, so are you gonna make comments on it and then there's gonna be like a final?
Comments on what?
The report, but
No,
you're taking what Gelman gave you
Yeah,
and you put it in the report
to get it to you as.
without
as
any
we can.
comments.
Yeah.
Correct.
Are you gonna make comments at some point?
Oh, we're going to be
Would
interpreting.
you like some comments as we go along?
Not tonight. I want to get through with my information tonight. Roger, if you want to make comments, I
Well,
presented it.
I'd like the rest of the people to hear my comments as we go through it.
I don't,
Then we're going to be
That would
taking
be
more
if
than 10
Vince wants
minutes.
to give
It's
you
pretty
some of his
quick.
time.
I mean, because otherwise, when are we gonna do it? What better time to do it than while it's in front of us?
Okay, Roger, we can do that, but then just understand, item number 5, we're gonna be cutting some things out there. But we can do that if you want to.
Well,
I
these are-
thought that I wanted to get it out. I thought people would compile comments, send it to me like people have in the past.
All right, I'll do that.
And as part of that, you've made it as a card. If it's a card from the card, it goes out to the card group under, in that email.
All right, so what I'll do is I'll share this with the card group with my comments on it and let other people add their comments. And then you'll be able to see those because I'm gonna not do it piecemeal. I'm gonna do it so that it's in one place in a Google Doc and then send you the link.
And the DEQ is yet to make additional comments on this report.
Right. I asked for their interpretation. And exactly, and so I wanted to present exactly what was presented to us.
Because when somebody reads this, that's not the way it comes across.
Well,
It looks like
What's
you've
it
read this
say?
over
What's it say at
before
the
you
top?
put it in.
it says Gelman provided response.
We say it right at
You say it at the
Gelman
top.
provided
provided
response.
summary.
DEQ has requested that Gelman provide a summary of the historic investigations and data used to evaluate the groundwater contamination.
All
The
right.
Gelman summary is provided below.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
think
it.
it
And-
would-
Yeah, we wanted to get this to you guys so you can start thinking about it too. I mean, this isn't something you read one time and you
That's
say,
good to
"Yep, here's my
clarify that.
thoughts."
I'm glad you
So-
haven't.
So
read
this
it
is
over and
exactly
commented.
how I got it from them, other than a couple of English, a couple of English changes, and I added Appendix A because their cross sections are independent. I had to put them in an appendix. I couldn't import them into this document. So I just want to point out that this is Gelman's exactly how I received it. So
Right.
it's their interpretations to the questions that you asked and the issues that we presented in our reports, ongoing issues. So I just wanted to point that out. There was two areas in there where we identified, we used Gelman's just presented what Gelman had, their interpretation.
Okay, well then I won't bother going through it today, because I had a number of responses just from my first reading of it today.
Could we add that as an agenda discussion item for the next meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay, I think that'd be better.
It's,
So I've also, just an update, I had said that I would be posting some documents, historical documents. I have posted those related to some of the questions we had on ecological exposure.
mhm.
So I put those on. Those are strictly I put them on the webpage, strictly the historic documents. I have not made comments here on, you know, what they were, you know, what summary of anything. I was able to get them on there before this went out. And then I just expanded, as I said I would, when there was a question about MW 103, you know, and a non-compliance issue or compliance issue at 103. Here's the Appendix A, which has the cross-sections that were provided exactly from Gelman, that they are utilizing as part of their discussions. So I had to put it in an Appendix C. So that's the report. It was out today. You know, it's the third one of our reports. I call it a quarterly report, but it's not following exact quarters. I have an extra month here, month there, depending on how much information I have available to put in and how long it takes to generate the report. And go ahead.
And who'd you send this to, Dan?
I sent it to about 58 people that related. It went to Michael Burkhoff, the EPA project manager, and then he had in previous he had identified a bunch of people in his emails of we're going to be doing these quarterly reports. So I just took that as I've been sending them out, the first two, that group. I didn't print the email to let you see who was on there.
You can send that to me though, and I can cross-reference.
Well, you have it.
Can people
Oh,
request to be
was it?
added to your
You
distribution
done?
list, Dan, if they want to
Yeah,
receive these
I'm
quarterly
sorry.
reports?
No.
Oh, that.
I mean, the quarterly reports are put on the website as well.
Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, so there is.
It's going to
This is
take
just,
potentially a week or so
takes
to
a
get it
week
on
or
the
so to
webpage.
go up there.
I did the final, and that word final, Roger, is related to that it's a final document for me. It's not, it's all the.
That's what I
Because
thought.
we know
That's
that
what I thought it
four
was, the
other
final
judges-
document,
Yeah.
without comments.
Yeah. Well, that's identified for me,
That document is full of our comments.
so.
No, the document's not full of your responses to their
Did you get
Presentation.
cut and paste. You take their report,
Yeah,
you cut it, you copy and
I
paste it
asked
into
them
this,
to do.
and make it your
something.
own without any
You guys
discussion.
asked us to ask them the questions, so we asked them the questions, and this is their response.
What is your job? To review their submittals, right?
If they're gonna do that.
And who said we haven't reviewed it? You think that you can review something like that overnight? It takes time to review it.
no, we
wanted to get it to you, would you
I
rather
thought it
us
was
wait?
reviewed already, just from the wording of it.
And moving forward, we can hold the
So you
data
might
until
wanna-
we're ready to.
Anybody, if you post it on the website, somebody looking at, oh, this must have been reviewed already because it's on the website.
Yes, please.
And
No.
it says final.
It
If
says
they
at the
picked it
top,
up and
Robert.
didn't.
Am I the only one that's seeing
Yes,
final and
because you're
thinking this has
missing the
been reviewed?
whole.
I didn't.
I mean, it is funny that it says the words there too. So if you're reading it, it says, this is Gelman's response. It says it right in there.
Adding an extra sentence that says the DEQ has not provided comments.
Exactly.
That would be
I
good
mean,
at
would,
the top.
yeah.
I didn't do it for this report.
Right, I'm just saying that would leave no
Right at
doubt.
the top,
but-
at the
yeah.
top.
Something
The
for
label.
later ones,
Right.
Yeah.
and I'll keep that in mind.
Well,
We'll
what you
add
can
that.
do, you don't have to change this. All you have to do is when you post it, add a parenthetical.
That would be changing the
statement that says
document. I can't
before
change the
review.
document after the fact. So this will be this way, that's how it was issued. Moving forward, we will make sure that anything that
It's
Gelman
not in my-
provides that hasn't been reviewed is very highlighted that it was not reviewed by DEQ.
Yeah, I think
Not
that's really
commented on,
important.
you know, it may have been.
Because, I mean, for instance, they don't even have their production well numbers labeled correctly. Their own supply wells, they're not labeled correctly.
Okay, and that'll be in your comments, right?
Exactly.
Perfect. We're trying to work together, and then you're asking us to not accept it. I don't know. I guess I'm not sure. I share the data, you yell at me, I don't, you yell at me.
Well, I was ready to yell at you because you released this thing, and I assumed you already read it.
Well, I just put it out.
I have a question. When do you think?
So you know what
when-
assume means too,
okay,
so.
When do you think the comments will be provided for
I
this?
can't, I'm not gonna give you.
Weeks, months,
I have. I'm not-
Christmas coming up?
You know, well, with that, but no, there's some other stuff that I'll be covering that we're gonna be doing, and it's gonna
Okay.
take some
And not to
time.
mention trying to negotiating the final agreement.
And then also, we're starting on the fourth one, which you want, which there will be trend analysis.
The
And we've been
larger
given
trend analysis.
information from the EPA on expanding our trend analysis that I presented, just graphs last time, so, I mean, that's coming too,
Mhm.
the end of the, you know, so, I don't wanna state when I'm gonna make some comments on it.
Trying to do it.
I
I'll
think
give
we
you a
should-
date.
We should acknowledge that. I think we all appreciate that the DEQ did provide the information as soon as they could.
Yeah, that's really
And thank you
good.
for that, and then please keep doing that. Please don't let
Yes,
this
no,
conflict.
we would want to, we want to
Yes.
continue to.
Yes.
And if it makes, if it's clear that we add a statement next time to that effect, we will be more than happy to do that.
Yep.
That sounds great.
So,
I appreciate
the next bullet I have is we're gonna be doing, we met with Evan Pratt, some of you may know, and we're gonna be doing some additional Allen Creek drain sampling here over the next 6 months, starting, we're hoping, in December. That's one of the reasons I don't wanna give you a date, because we're working on a work plan and get that done, and I
Okay.
get a lot of help from to get access to the Allen Creek. We're hopefully Kevin and I will be doing a work plan, draft work plan, that we start discussing with Evan next week, and finalize things and try to take our first sample. We met with them on November 19th. They had asked, because of that change from 4.4 in West Park to 19 in September,
Right.
from last year to this year,
It's a 400% increase.
we
in
all
8
agreed
months.
to let's find out if that was an anomaly, is that a trend? And so we're gonna be doing some sampling, not only there, but at up locations, about 6 to 8 locations up, depending on where we can get access. And
These are places where the drain is close enough that you can get into a grade or something.
get in through a manhole, get in through a grate, right. We have to watch that. So we'll be going up, and undoubtedly, we're gonna go up past where the shallow groundwater is impacting it. I mean, we're gonna be going up to where we've been saying, it's pretty deep, the contamination is deep up here. So, but we're gonna be doing that once a month for the next 6 months, hopefully starting by the end of December. So I don't have a work plan yet. We literally were getting this set up, and I was trying to get that document that I sent out today set up. So that's next on the agenda, is get a work plan for that and start.
So I would like you to make a note that the tests at Hannah Park are not testing the Allen's Creek drain. Because in Hannah Park, and I went
Where's
down,
Hannah Park?
Hannah Park is near the vets, not near vets, near the,
7th, it's just up from 7th.
yeah, just up from 7th, just a lot, there's a lot between Hannah Park and
Okay, here's
7th.
7.
So
Is this Hannah Park?
yeah, so that site, the creek is in a pipe, okay?
I have Hannah Park marked, Roger.
So the creek is in a pipe in Hannah Park. So if you're getting any water there, it's not in the creek, it's surface water that comes down the hill and standing water. So I'm not sure I don't think it's a valid place to test. I wouldn't do it. Okay?
Well, we were asked,
And then another place.
specifically, back up, why you even started there, we were asked by someone, what about the water in Hannah Park, my kids playing?
Well, yeah.
And so I sampled it, and I've just
Okay.
been sampling.
Okay, I think that Hannah Park is probably not a good use of time because if you go down there, you see it, the pipe's in a big concrete, the creek is in a big concrete pipe. And so there's no open creek there like behind our house or at West Park where you actually open a grate and get into the drain. So that site may not be worth doing. And then testing West Park surface water, I was involved in, the Allen Creek group was instrumental in getting the stormwater management built into West Park rebuilt. And the only reason it got rebuilt is that the stormwater money from the state, from the shovel-ready money that Obama had, allowed them to collect, I forget how many thousands of dollars, tens of thousands from the state on the revolving fund program. So the water that's getting collected at West Park on the surface is basically from 7th Avenue and surrounding areas. So there's no water really coming out of the creek into West Park. they wanted to do that, and I thought that was a good idea. They liked the
What
creek,
sample my sample you referencing that I'm
the
saying?
pond,
Well,
at West Park. Any other standing water in West Park is gonna be water that's coming off of 7th Street, coming off of Miller, coming off of Huron.
Yeah, I
So-
don't disagree with you. I
Okay,
just-
so I'm not
We
sure
had
that's a
initially
valid.
done that, and I
Yeah.
just went back
Okay,
to
I'm
to
just, I
collect
just
that
wanna
to
make
see
sure
if.
that we
you
know
know.
what we're talking about here.
Yep.
And I'll say it again, because I think there's some confusion. What I know from talking to what I would consider very reliable sources is that pipe in West Park picks up a lot of seeps, a lot of groundwater. And the reason they did that is when they put that pipe in, there was a lot of undermining of the foundations, undermining of the roadway, and so they decided to put little stubs out into seeps that are upstream of West Park.
Where would that be on here?
It's just upstream of West Park,
Right
so
here.
across 7th. Well, at 7th and across, so up,
All the way up to 8th?
I don't know how far it goes up, but I'm just saying that during the drought, I'm glad you tested the last test when it was very dry. That was great, because mainly what you were testing then was groundwater. There wasn't a whole lot of flow, because the creek behind our house had no flow, as you know. You guys went there and saw no flow.
There's what I was given as Allen Creek.
Okay,
You
so
know,
I'm just
some
telling
drain.
you that
Yep.
when you test West Park in that pipe, you're going to be looking at, and it's kind of fortuitous in a way, that this is a way, easy sample site, and that's one reason I suggested it. It's picking up a huge amount of groundwater, because during a drought, you can stand over that grate and water is gushing through there.
And that's one of the
Huge
reasons
volumes, huge volumes.
we agreed, we haven't
And I
asked
know
us
a
to
couple
come in.
other
and-
sites in the city like that, if we ever get to testing more, farther away from this location.
Okay.
We know.
But that's why we're going up.
Yeah,
he
I
wanted
know
to
a
go
couple
up,
other sites have the same situation, where during a drought, you stand on top of the drain and it's just gushing water. So it's picking up groundwater. I don't think there's a leaky pipe. Maybe there's a leaky pipe, but I doubt it. I think the city tries to, fix those when they happen. So just to kind of clarify.
Colored one.
You want to, it's fine, we just had a discussion where that was actually the case.
The
The city
colored
line
one is
had
not-
growth,
I don't
and it was
think I have a
exactly
colored
the
one of
issue.
that.
It just, it's my previous.
Here's the
We
color
actually
one
had
I
this
gave you.
discussion.
It's something that has.
It has actually had.
Well, I understand. I just want to make sure, since we're in a group here, I thought, it'd be good to.
No, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I collected at locations we historically collected because I was out there and it didn't take too much more time to do that. And rather than getting the question, well, why did you collect something here? Hannah Park was a
Okay,
person
okay,
wanted
that's fine,
information,
that's
so we
fine.
did. To make sure there wasn't anything that.
Giving my interpretation of what's going on.
Yes, go ahead.
I wasn't able to attend the last meeting, but the meeting prior to this, because I grew up in that neighborhood, and I grew up on bicycles, which is an advantage, because unlike in a car, on a bicycle, you know when you're going uphill or downhill.
Right.
It's much clearer. I would like to know, or I think it would be good to understand the playgrounds behind Slauson Junior High School, Slauson Middle School.
Middle school.
Because, well, number one, I went there for 2 years, but beyond that, in order to make the playing fields level, there's a tremendous cut into the ground behind Slauson.
Talking about right here, right?
Yes.
And
And that
they
hill, I mean, that just a
they
great.
tested right nearby that.
Well, but
On
I
8th Street.
remember from,
Yeah.
at one time, right now, there's a park
Right.
east of the Slauson playfields.
Yes.
It's got trees in it and stuff like that, and there's some, I don't wanna call it low income, but there's some affordable income housing just east of it as well. And I forget the name of the road that goes through there.
That was Bemidji.
No,
It's
not
to the
Bemidji.
west, actually.
No,
Well,
it's
Roger can zoom in
east,
on that.
but here's my point. I'm sorry to kind of ramble. Here's my point. That was, before it was turned into a park, that used to be the overflow athletic playground for Slauson. And with firsthand information, I can tell you that sometimes
This one
the
here.
gym teachers would have classes there, and
Oh.
other times they wouldn't. And the reason they wouldn't is because there was standing water that would go over the tops of your tennis shoes. So, and
They
that is,
tested the Wheeler house right there, right on 8th Street, behind, it was Conan Smith's house,
Yep.
right there, boom, right
no,
there.
I need to see
No,
this
that
license.
RL 10, RL 11 are the
I need
well
to-
samples.
Yeah.
The,
Slausson's here.
Okay,
Slauson here.
may I step up there for just a second? Because I'm sorry, my familiar, when I was working, people knew I lived in Ann Arbor, and they would come to me and say, hey, I've got tickets for Power Center, how do I get there? And I would say, I don't know. And they would say, but you've lived here all your life.
You're cut
And I
through.
said, absolutely. I can find Power Center with my eyes closed, but I can't tell you how to get there. I can't tell you how to get to this part. Okay, there's Slauson. There's a hill here.
For sled riding, no.
That's
no.
it.
There's a hill here that must be at least 100-foot high.
No.
That's cut,
Well,
it is.
well, I don't know.
Slauson's,
Slow it down.
Slauson's the building up above there.
Right here? Or
Yeah.
this?
That whole complex.
That's
is-
all.
That's Slauson.
This is Slauson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where is,
Well, the cut is right here from Bena Vista. That's downhill and it's a
Right.
great sled run,
Right.
okay?
That's the
Now,
old
let me
creek
step-
that is
let me
right
step
through
over
there.
here. This
Is the
used to be a playing field. The sidewalks weren't here, and that's where the overflow gym classes used to go to,
Great.
right through here.
It's a little lower right in here, right?
It's low, it's very low, it's always wet.
And it goes uphill to
It is
here.
wet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This
all the
turquoise
time.
line here,
And
you
that's
see.
in a larger scale.
West.
That's not very far from West Park. It's definitely downhill from West Park,
Right, right.
and there's standing water.
Well, it's not, I
Not
don't
to
think it-
mention
I
the
don't think it's
fact that there's
downhill from
low,
West
there's
Park.
low-income housing right here.
it has its own drain. That's, you see this turquoise line that runs through? That's the drain.
Plus the drain goes through there.
Right,
That's
The old Allen Creek
That's
drain.
the old Allen's Creek runs right through there.
right.
That's the old Allen's Creek.
And we
You
know,
see-
I've
you
heard
see the-
people, I've heard people talk about access. That's public school property.
Well, that's city
Access
property.
should be, access should be absolutely a no-brainer.
Well, you see the RL 12, RL 10, RL 13, and 11. Those are borings from our shallow groundwater investigation. The RL 12, RL 13, we did have positive detections, but the groundwater was, let's say, 8 to 10 feet below grade. There wasn't any standing water there, but we had positive
Well,
detections.
It doesn't take much to raise the
If
water
you go
table
back to
10 feet.
Slauson, right below Slauson, I tested ponded water, basically a little swampy area in the back of Conan
Oh, Conan Smith's house.
Conan Smith's house, and it
That's
was
this one, right?
non-detect there. So that in conjunction with doing our surface water, shallow wells, we do have a test
So
right
that's a
there.
resource that's been.
We've tested that one time. I did
investigated.
not go, we called that a seep because it was, it is backyard.
Oh,
it's got
yeah,
this.
it's a
And
definite-
we
that's
tested
my
that
whole point.
there, and it was
It's a
non-detect
groundwater seep.
several years ago. I have not been back to test the seeps again. You know, that's on the back burner. You know, if we have we have an indication that we need to go back and do some of those. But just realize that it was tested within the last in 2016, and it was non-detect. The only detections we had was RL 13 and 12, and they were a couple of ppb of dioxane.
So I have
Everything
a
else-
question. So you're coming up with a plan now to do additional near-surface groundwater tests? You talked-
No, we're not. No, we're not. We're talking of a plan to come up with sampling the Allen Creek drain.
So there is no, is there no
Not
discussion?
not at this
wait a
point.
minute, is there no discussion of any kind of permanent wells or any systematic program like Dan Bicknell suggested, and we have asked for in the past and repeatedly, that there should be a systematic plan that we're following that includes permanent wells so that we know what part of the community may be exposed in the years to come and what we can do
My
to mitigate
concern-
that if it gets to the, you know, point where we need to talk about mitigation.
My
I think
concern
we-
about that part,
Well,
whether you found it or not, is number one, it's a middle school and there are children out there running around in the grass. There's a seat, there's water. There's some low-income housing right there that gets flooded out occasionally from that seat.
Well, they did test
If,
right in the middle of that.
if something goes wrong, it's gonna go really wrong.
Right.
They did
Well, it's a
test,
very low spot.
they
No
did
question.
test in the middle of that, and of course, they found this amount of dioxane at RL 13,
So that's like 2 part per billion.
you know.
Is that dated?
Well, it's just that one day.
2016.
I'm sorry?
It was collected in August 2016.
What's interesting is that they found it here at RL 12
3.
at 3,
Yeah.
but not where you would expect to see it, where there's dioxin, where the groundwater is closer to the surface. This is at the surface or within 10 feet of the surface. That's
Well,
what
we've
these
had a
two
few
lines mean.
surprises in the last 2 years, like the plume going north.
Well, again, these might be subject to the same patterns of transport that we're seeing back at Wagner Road. It could be that dioxane's moving in narrow channels.
Well, I'll repeat my concern that we could have 1,4-dioxane seeping into people's basements. And we were at 1,000, close to 1,000 part per billion at Vets. That's about 11 blocks down, West Park. There's a lot of wet basements in the old west side. People, you know, amongst the Allen's Creek group, we've gotten a lot of people asking us about wet basements. And
There's Michigan
undermined
basements there
basements
too,
that
isn't
were
there?
undermined by the groundwater, so they replace their basement walls. There's a lot of that going on, which is unfortunate, but that's the reality. And that goes all the way up to Vets Park. There are homes up in the Vets Park area, and then there are homes even up on north of that, which you would think is up on a hill, but there's seeps up there that are worrying some people. So, you know, I think we need to make sure that we aren't going to have homeowners getting concentrations in their basement that are of concern. And the other point I made, and it had never been responded to, is if you have 280 part per billion in your basement and you're pumping it out with a sump pump, you're violating state law, because the groundwater surface water interface is 280 and you're going to be going over that limit. And I've not gotten any response from anybody as to what the plan is on dealing with that.
Dan, were you done with your report?
No.
Okay. I've got to interject a little bit here. We should let Dan finish and then go into the discussion,
Okay,
because he really,
I thought he was finished.
No.
Okay.
Thanks, Kathy.
I think I mentioned last time concerning Venice Park,
your turn.
because I have a knowledge of that before there was anything there.
Yeah.
Diana,
Let's let
I think
Dan
that
finish,
Dan was gonna
and then we'll
finish, yeah,
discuss.
his
Where Knight's,
report.
where Knight's restaurant is now,
Yeah.
there was a pond that I used to ice skate on in the winter because there was so much water, standing water,
Right.
above grade. When the winter, you could ice skate.
All right, Dan?
Okay, the last two bullets, just an update of ongoing interfacing and ongoing treatment system. I received notice last Wednesday, and I've been talking with Gelman. They informed me immediately that they had some work being done on on their pumping well TW8 and pumping well TW22. Those are on site just east of Third Sister Lake. Their technician found that the TW8 integrity of the pumping well TW8 was the integrity. It basically foul. It broke open and filled with sand.
What?
So they identified that wells have a limit that was installed in 2001, I believe, and so they have basically.
So that's this guy, right?
Yeah, it's right. Right there. So they could not. They shut down TW8. and are in planning to replace that. Now, my first call, once I got this, called them and just started asking some questions and identified, I need you to take a look at your, at that time I didn't know a schedule. They hadn't had a schedule, potential schedule for a replacement. So I said, I need you to evaluate and recommend some wells that, monitoring wells in the vicinity that to sample, extra sampling of wells in the vicinity, not necessarily following the the monitoring plan, but I wanted them, and I'm in discussions with them about taking some extra samples of monitored wells around TW8. The TW8 is shut off. It's the integrity of the well, where they lost the well, the screen cracked open, filled with sand, and so they're going to be replacing that here. I have since got the schedule, kind of tentative schedule that could be replaced as early as the middle of December here. Stearns Drilling Company, they've signed a contract with Stearns Drilling Company. It's basically related to when they can get out there and do it. And more likely it's going to be done the first week in January. And that'll be the replacement for TW8, properly
Do we have any
abandoned.
special requests on TW where it should be screened or?
Well, I've also
Since they're
in
doing
discussions
early.
with them to do the TW8 wells. What if you pop it up? I think, Roger, it's about 60 feet. Did you have it a little bit
Yeah, it's
ago?
got it right there.
76,
76,
screened at
Yeah, 60.
60 to 70.
I basically again asked them.
Just
They will basically we're planning on just replacing the well, going down to 70 feet. Replace that well with a replacement. I asked them.
Are they gonna sample as they go down?
You let me finish.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Yes, well, I have asked them to consider that. I said, I wanted, they are also they have not confirmed that they're going to do that, but I'm on them to, take a couple of samples. Now, that's not down to bedrock, but I said, they had some vertical sampling there. I said, let's see what it is today related to, you've been pumping on that for some years. So they were receptive. That, again, was their consultant, Jim Brody. And so he has to go back to Gelman and the legal, and so I don't know whether that will occur, but I will be pressing for that. So,
Do they do regular maintenance?
oh, absolutely.
So this just happened out of the
Yes,
It failed.
I mean, it can.
It
They
failed.
do fail.
And the well was installed in 2010, 2001. Is that when it was, Roger? I don't have my thing here. So it's just, it wears out. It's even though it's stainless steel, even though it's, metal pipe, it wears out. So in their maintenance, the screen gets fouled, they have to do stuff to
Yeah, that's
do
what I
the.
thought.
Yep, but in all that, since 2001, they had a crack. Something happened that it cracked and sand came in and filled it.
Yeah.
So you really can't use, you can pump the well, but the screen is now.
2001.
Yeah.
So,
So they basically are going to go replace that one, still continue it as a pumping well.
how did they find out that it was?
They were
broken?
going in and doing some maintenance. The pumping pressure, the screens indicated that they were getting some fouling, and they have to do that every so often on their pumping wells. Acid wash. I don't know what exactly they were doing on there, but they were going to be doing TW8 and TW22, which is right next to it to the south. And suddenly their technicians started working on TW8 and found that the integrity of the well was filled up with sand at the screened interval. So
Kind of like the horizontal well, almost.
potentially, they had a break, and that failed after that. And so
I can see horizontal wells failing because gravity. This is a vertical well.
Yeah, but Roger, wells wear out.
Well,
Anytime you're gonna acid wash anything or do anything of
Over the
mechanical
years.
scrub, I don't know exactly what they do, their maintenance schedule is here, but in other systems I've had, you're physically running things over the screen.
Yeah.
Um,
So the actual cleaning of it might have.
The cleaning of it in itself could
To get the
also
well,
reduce.
to maintain the well efficiency, bringing water in. And that's the whole idea about this pumping well.
It could have been damaged on the way in too. From the standpoint of it got bent or something, the screen got bent as it was going in, and so it created
It's
a
failed
weak
in
point. Over the
2001.
years now, it's failed.
Failed.
I know this from swimming
So,
pool filters too.
basically,
Eventually, they just
they-
kind of break. And
They
you're
found,
like,
my
I'm getting
point
sand in my
is,
pool.
they immediately told me, and I called back, so they immediately told me,
Good.
which is what I want them to do, what we want them to do. So they were planning their, and that's when I started asking, hey, let's add
Okay, well,
this,
here,
let's
let's
add
look and see. You said you wanted some monitoring points nearby, right?
Yes, I want them to,
So
I
this
have
is at
some-
about 841 elevation. That's what we're gonna look for, something around the 840s. And here is this one's a little too shallow, or too deep. No, too shallow. This one's a little too shallow. Here's one. This is almost the exact same thing, 842. And it's about that same parts per billion. So that's a pretty good indication. So 52S would be what I recommend.
Yeah,
It's the
well,
closest
there's,
one.
I have a list, I didn't bring it with me, but I've taken a look at that and I said, I'm giving you the opportunity, to evaluate that and propose some wells for me, and we'll come up with an agreement. And again, did they say absolutely we're gonna be sampling? They were receptive, the consultant was receptive, I understand, I see why. First question is, why do we gotta do that? We're gonna replace the wells. I said, well, let's do that. You sampling an extra time before and after replacement is nothing, and that's useful information. And I said, I'm gonna get, stakeholders are gonna question it, and I think it's worth, answering their questions. So with that, again, he has to go back. I have not been told, yes, we'll do that, but.
Okay, Dan, they're gonna drill a new well.
Yes, they are.
Nearby.
Yes, I don't know
And
exactly.
they're probably
where.
gonna do some characterization nearby to see if it's the same lithology, even though it's only 10 feet away.
No, Roger, they probably, well, they'll undoubtedly they'll put the well in and do, and describe it and do the geologic log as they go
Okay.
down. And I asked them to do vertical
Are
sampling.
there
They're not
any-
gonna do a pre-boring.
Are there any wells, any borings in this area that have gone down to bedrock?
Not, more south into the west.
Down
so,
here,
Yeah,
but nothing in core area.
right. And I cannot, Roger, I've already checked with our AG. I basically asked them, how are you doing it? Can you go down to bedrock and vertically screen? And they said, well, no, we're replacing the well. And then I said, well, I want you vertically taking some samples above that. And they said.
Well, as long as
do
you've
that.
pointed out to them that
Right.
if you go down to bedrock, you will finally have a sample that goes down to bedrock anywhere in your core area.
That was my first question to them. They basically, which I thought they would say, it's just a pumping well replacement
How
activity.
deep is bedrock at that location?
We
It's
have,
going to be down at.
No idea.
well,
Yeah,
we
well, I
went
mean,
down to
it's-
bedrock, we don't know.
We don't
It's,
know.
just from the other wells down there, you're in the plus or minus 200 feet.
Plus or minus 200 feet total, or 200 feet more
No,
total?
total depth. You're
And they're
down
at
in the,
140 now?
no, they're at, the wells at 60 to 70.
There
Dan,
may
do
be.
you see value in them going to bedrock?
Yeah, I mean, having information would be useful. Again, whether we can, I asked, they were very not receptive of going to bedrock. It's just replace the pumping well to get the system as required, as what what the current system is.
What percent more cost would it be to go to bedrock? Like 10% more money? Or 5%?
Well, okay, now
It
you're
would be
talking,
significantly more than
yeah,
that.
now
I
you're
don't
talking
know.
potentially 2 borings. Now you're going to bedrock, and then what are you gonna do? You're gonna backfill.
Yeah, you're gonna have to
You're
go
gonna
with
backfill,
bedrock.
really back
and
up to
then come
70 where they want that.
can
They may
screen it.
have to do a second boring because backfilling to,
Yeah, no.
from 200
Yeah, I
to.
thought you could screen these wells several times.
No, I mean, when no.
Yeah.
No, when we call them cluster wells, a cluster well is still typically, if you want to say a
Different
cluster
wells.
well, it could be 3 wells, it's still 3 individual wells, even though they're just in a cluster. I mean, I have seen where they'll put a larger, like a.
There's typically
you have
three-
for like your sprinkler system.
There's typically 3 borings.
Typically, it's 3 separate borings, and they may put
They
a
may
big
do it in
housing
one
so
big
that
boring. 3
yeah, so there's
small
only
wells.
one access port, but it's still 3.
You might point out to
individual
them what they did for MW 125.
Yeah, that's the one that is down to the southwest.
They didn't quite get to bedrock because they hit a boulder and couldn't go on. But they screened it at much shallower. They were gonna go to bedrock, but they hit a boulder.
And why would they go to bedrock? Who forced them to do that?
They wanted to know. I think the university wanted to know what's going on deeper.
So just realize that.
One more thing on this. They actually did go back a week or so later.
Try to go down
No, then they went to bedrock with another boring
Just a
that
boring,
we
not
don't
a well.
have the information for. We have a well log, but we don't have the same kind of XY and stuff for that.
That's a university one?
The Gelman went back after doing the boring for MW 125, and after they had problems, they went back and did go down to bedrock.
But where your
This is
arrow-
part of that missing data that I keep harping on.
But where your arrow is, isn't that Saginaw?
It is Saginaw Forest, and it's right next to MW 125.
I mean, I'm wondering, there's a caretaker cabin in there that ran off well water, so.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
they sampled. U of M has historically sampled that well
Yep.
numerous
Right.
No,
times.
but I
And
meant.
there's no more caretakers.
No, thank goodness.
Yeah, right.
I-
Yeah, we have all that information. We have the caretaker's logs. That's something the DEQ doesn't have.
For us to require, we can't require them to go to the bedrock. I requested that. Again, I've been told by our AG to require that would be basically change the, bingo. And so it's a extraction well replacement activity. They should have it done within a month. And I'm trying to get some additional sampling around
Maybe
and vertically sampling in the
Maybe our
board.
governmental agencies can request it.
Well,
Of the-
but Dan, don't you think it would be important to say, we did request that they go to bedrock?
I mean, I think that may convince them to do it. If we get the county and the townships and the city, Jeff, and the city of Ann Arbor to chime in on this, to say, we want, if you're gonna redo this well, go to bedrock.
I have to remind everybody
Would
that,
Evan Pratt,
Let's
You
not
think you
forget
might-
there's a new sheriff in town. and the agent
Again,
in town.
I believe what we're getting
gonna
at
happen.
is basically requesting them to do it, a
Yeah,
requirement,
but if we get more government agencies to chime in, they may be more
maybe.
inclined to do it.
well,
Two-
does anybody remember how we discovered the E-plume? Am I the only one here who remembers this?
Give me long enough, I'll remember.
It'll take me a minute to remember.
The E-plume wasn't shown
No,
because
no,
they never
there.
sampled that deep.
Yeah, so how'd they?
You know how they finally sampled it deep? Because they had some test wells out here in the Parkland Plaza area. And they happened to go down to bedrock and they hit something on the way. And so we said, we want every boring from now on to go to bedrock. And they went around the peripheral and they found some. And they said, oh my God, this is bad news. So they said, let's go out far enough that we're not gonna find it. So they went out to MW 72 and they found 3,000 parts per billion a half mile away.
Taking every boring to bedrock is not always the best option.
But they should have it at the core.
You should
Well,
know.
now, I understand what you're
You
saying.
should know where the
I'm just-
aquifers are.
Overall, he was making,
Basically-
every boring should go, you run the risk of actually contaminating more than you ever anticipated through your own actions. If you
They should have, if they're re-drilling this
Interesting
well,
thought.
they should go to the core. I mean, they should go to bedrock. I mean, I think it's pretty crazy not to. And they're just avoiding the reality, and that's something we should not tolerate. And
This is something that's recurring. Do you know how deep their production wells are?
I don't have.
They're plugged now, but you remember how deep they were?
No.
Uh-oh,
I don't
Roger's
remember.
playing trivia,
They were E unit depth.
yeah.
There were triple digits part
Yeah,
per billion
yeah,
when this contamination was first sampled. Those were supply wells for the company, not just for their process water, but for their drinking. They had triple digits parts per billion in one of their supply wells.
There's this living proof right here.
When they said the E unit is protected by a clay layer.
Well, they say a lot of things.
And I remember repeating that because I believed
Yeah,
it
yeah.
that time.
Well, now it's on tape.
Dan, did you have anything else?
Yes.
Yes.
So-
Let's stand finish, because it's getting late here.
Yeah, we got a
7:30.
We got a letter.
I also then, yesterday afternoon, they sent a notice that they are gonna be doing some well on the pump house. So they're gonna be shutting down the transmission and the pumping wells, LB4, 19, 21, 23, on Monday, while they do the Porter Street pump house work, bringing DTE, moving the meter, connecting some piping. So on the upgrade, they're going to be shutting down for 3 days, starting Monday on that side, coming from Evergreen. So they've identified that, and will identify, give me an update on what the schedule, update on the repair, not repair, it's upgrading the pump house and when they're back online.
Okay.
So, as they're required to do, they let me down. And again, this is maintenance of the treatment system is running 24/7.
This is when they want to raise it.
Right, it's related to the pump. And I gave an update and said they're trying to get everything done by the end of the year. So this is just the next, one of the steps they have to do is, because they can't have, they did temporary pipes and they've done stuff, so they have to shut it down and do some of the electrical and get it all fixed, switch it over.
Right. Okay.
So they're starting that on Monday. If that changes, I'll send out an email. I didn't send out an email on this one or the other one because I was negotiating with them on the other one and I knew we were coming here. And then like I said, I got it at 4 o'clock last evening. I knew I was coming here tonight. But I will, if I get these types of notice, as I've done at your request, is send it out and let people know, hey, they're shutting this down, or this happened, or that happened.
That's good to know, yeah.
And just realize that if you have any questions, one last thing, if you have any questions, each one of these reports, either the quarterly reports from them, they have kind of what happened during the time frame. So they talk about when systems were shut down, what was done, and and I get noticed when there's major stuff. But if there's a shutdown while they're doing half a day of this and repair, they don't tell me exactly at that second. But it's all summarized here.
Is there ever a time when there's some work that's noted in there, like work for the next quarter or stuff like that, that there's a tracking table of that?
No, they don't provide that. I mean, they identify in the text of.
Because I've noticed that in the past where they say, well, in the next quarter we're going to do
Well,
this.
they basically have a
And
little
there's
section
really
called
no indication whether that's really followed up on unless you happen to do your own tracking table.
Right, and that's what so they have identified anticipated major activities for the next
I mean, if this were a company and you're saying we have this project to do and you're not tracking the project, the company will go out of business. Seems like the DEQ should require this of such sites.
You now are getting into this quarterly reports and this type of stuff are identified in the CJ
I know.
report, and it's not defined specifically explicit. That's a better term.
That's right.
So they are meeting, and we've
The
gone
letter of the law.
the letter of the law, and they have gone into dispute resolution historically on some of the things we've asked them to include that. And so, there's another little layer of, it's not just the DEQ following Part 201, forcing them to do it. It's in the
Right.
Washington County Court, CJ, and a lot of the times you're asking why not to go to bedrock. If the DEQ was doing the overseeing and had it under the agreement with us, we'd have that in there. Well, the court didn't. They're following the court.
Okay, I was just wondering, given your role in all of this, if you could advocate for something like that.
Oh, absolutely, and I did. When
You did ask for it.
But even more, I mean.
That's what I'm saying, maybe if the governmental agencies
I
would chime in on it.
We always, when I called them, and they called back, I basically said, how are you doing this well? You go into bedrock. And this is a good opportunity, or are you just doing a replacement? And they said, we're just doing a replacement. I said, well, that information there would be good, and would love to see some bedrock and with vertically sampling, and they said, well, we're not gonna do the bedrock, but and then I started asking about, well, whatever you do, I'd like to see some vertically sampling.
Yeah.
And that's when they were receptive to potential, again, why, it's just a replacement, we have information. So how much more, yes, I guess I could,
I think you should note that you've asked them to go to bedrock and they declined.
I would like to make a resolution.
And why you can't force, you just have the footnote saying because it's,
I would like to propose a resolution for the card group to, that we would like to see this new well go to bedrock. Any second?
well, okay.
I'm not ready to
You
second
mean
that
to have
A vote.
a vote that we'd like to see it
Just-
go to
yeah,
bedrock?
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of a given, isn't
Just
it?
realize
We want to
that
vote on it. I think it's worth doing.
it's a replacement, we want to get the replacement, a pumping well there.
Let's get on the record.
So, going to bedrock, the well may not be placed down at bedrock. Going to bedrock and getting information as you go down is good, but definitely I need another pumping well there because it's in the
Well,
core
I'm just
area.
saying,
and
let's have it on the record that the card group would
Well,
like to see.
I think what Dan's saying is if you ask for it to go to bedrock, it could delay putting in the replacement purge well, and you could be delaying the cleanup.
Again, the purge wells are
that's what he's
in a
saying.
high
They're gonna drill it
area.
anyway.
And you know the
They're gonna
company's
drill it
gonna,
anyway.
you know the company's gonna use that
Yeah, I
plug.
know. Well,
So you don't wanna be seen as an obstructionist. I think we could say it's unfortunate that they are not going to bedrock because that would be one of the few
right, absolutely.
borings in that area
They're
that goes to
gonna be
bedrock.
drilling the well already. I mean, they're gonna be there with the
It's a
machinery.
lost opportunity.
It's really unfortunate that they're not gonna do that, and I think it's detrimental to the effort, and I think, it'd be good to call them on it. And, for whatever reason, at least it's on the record, that they're being, non-committal to helping out the community.
What's
So-
the closest well that goes to bedrock in that area?
It would be one of their
It would be.
borings that doesn't have a well well. I mean, no well wasn't put in. And of course, I'd like to show you those on the map,
I don't know.
but of course, I don't have all that XY information.
I need my database to quickly, because I don't have a memorized the depths of the monitoring wells around there. But I know, you go out to 127, which is out to the southwest, that definitely has gone deep. And 126.
Anything at the core, near the core, within 100 feet of the core, in any direction.
Well, we can actually, why don't we do this? Why don't we table that for the next meeting, and I will show
don't know off
you,
the top of my head.
I will
need
show
more
you
than I
which
have
wells
here.
go to bedrock.
Might the university be interested in doing a public service that on Saginaw Forest property where they own and control it, take a well down to bedrock?
Well, they have. That's what we were talking
How far
about, the
does that miss the mark
125.
that we're trying to get Gelman to do?
Well, it's
That's
close to-
outside the,
We would like to do it at the core where the original where the real high concentrations
I think
still
it'd be
are.
very valuable to have that.
I mean, the more we know about where the source of
They're
this
drilling
is,
already.
the better chance we have of cleaning it up over the duration.
Dan, how much more material do you have?
that was it. I just wanted to make sure you guys got the notices that I got of things happening,
Okay.
so you're aware when things are shut down.
Jeff and Dan,
I just
this
have
stuff.
a, I just have a quick question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
While we came to a break, sorry about this. Hey, so I just came up on my calendar because I'm looking at city stuff too. The Lockwood is at in front of Planning Commission at this very moment. And MDEQ had some insight into that, and I know that they were gonna.
And there's a representative there at that
Somebody's
meeting.
there with them now. That was my question.
Yes.
Okay. You obviously know the great concerns for that site, and
Mhm.
the staff recommended it, and I had read through the report. I'm not so thrilled with the way we handle some of these things as a city, the way we hang some of these approvals on these well-expired documents. And we're actually talking about bringing a new master plan we're going to enter the master plan review cycle with the city of Ann Arbor, which is a big load, I know, but it's long since overdue. And so I just wanted to make sure that the MDEQ people had been there and had their say, because I know that that's where she is. And I actually.
Well, the other thing to mention is that planning
There's
commission
something
is,
here, I wonder.
Yeah.
planning commission is advisory, it's not statutory. Planning commission is not statutory.
No, I know.
They just advise city council,
Yeah.
so it's not the end all.
And we have Kevin Lund, who has been at our meetings, our
Right.
geologist, hydrogeologist. He was asked to present, put together some information, and he's there to answer questions, so
Okay.
we have a rep there.
All right.
We were asked that by the city and so.
Okay.
Someone's over there from DEQ.
Yeah, I don't have anybody I can text you and see how it's going.
All right.
Michelle, did you have some?
Yeah, so Jan, as a matter of strategy, I mean, I think everyone in this room is in agreement that getting a well down to bedrock in that core area is important. I'm not hearing disagreement about that. It's a matter of timing and how you get there, right? Is that, and not wanting to, you're concerned about doing it now because that could cause Gelman to have an excuse for not.
Right, and
Doing
I
it
also
right
have
in-
some, I don't know for sure about how
Yeah,
we require that.
if we
It is
ask-
just,
That's
it's
what
just
I'm
an
saying,
act.
it's a matter of
Just quickly.
strategy.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can ask them, but if they say no, then I have to go to court to
Right.
get them to do it.
I understand that. So would it be helpful to have, say, the county pass a resolution urging Gelman to do this? Is that kind of political pressure?
We don't speak to the political.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
can't.
my opinion is that, again,
It can't hurt.
it can't hurt. I mean, I always bring up that one of the reasons I ask for information is because I know I'm gonna get these questions from stakeholders.
Right.
And I said, I can't answer that, or I think you wanna provide me information, or I'm gonna answer it the best way I can, and it may not be the answer you wanna hear.
So one of the
And-
things this body can do is pass a resolution asking its local governments, municipalities, county, to do that with the information in the resolution so that when we write our resolutions, we know what to put in there without having to do a lot of research. You could say, Historic District did this recently. They say, we want you to pass a resolution in support of blank, and you send it out to all the governmental entities. It's a strategy to help get more
Well,
attention and
if we're gonna
I'm
do
meeting the
that,
county
though-
commission, I just want you to know, and I'm the main person bringing this to board leadership's attention. So I'm just trying to pass that on. And I also wanted to pass on to everyone that Washington County, it just got finally passed. We've established our first environmental council, and I'm gonna try and make sure that this group gets a voice on that council. So we keep this at the forefront of the county's attention.
And
Because it
somebody
is
on that
not.
council is at these meetings. You gonna have that?
I'm
Somebody
sorry.
at the council be at these meetings?
Or someone from this council being out in the environmental council, so there is a natural synergy. And
But somebody at the environmental council
Right.
be at the
I also
third
want to make
meetings.
sure we get a commissioner.
Both
coming
a
to
two-way
this meeting,
communication.
which hasn't happened. I mean, I'm not actually officially the commissioner assigned to this group. I just come because I care. Thank you.
Who's assigned to this group?
It was Ken.
Well, he's not on the board anymore, is he?
Well, we both are until January
Oh, I
1st.
see.
Yeah. Yeah. So-
I like the idea of having support from local governments, but I kind of dread the thought that what this might turn into is every time we have something in CARD, we should just be able to do it as CARD because there's already resolutions of the local government supporting CARD. And when it comes from CARD, it should carry the weight of at least 3 or 4 local governments.
Does the city, do we have a resolution you can point me to that?
I think it does.
But if we have each resolution
I'm not
passed on to the local governments, then you're gonna have like,
What depends?
I'm not suggesting
For
we do this
every-
every time, but
Right,
if there's
right.
something really important,
Yeah.
this
I
is a
would agree.
lever to pull. And
I think
don't see
it's expanding out on the bedrock thing, it's also, why is Gelman allowed to terminate their shallow sampling at the core site? There's no shallow sampling being done on these wells that were sampled for years. And some of those had double-digit parts per billion.
Did the permission come from the court? Did Gelman petition the court?
No, they just quit sampling.
They just stop.
Well, I guess.
You got, okay.
Well,
In
we're
brief.
running out of time to get into that discussion.
Yeah,
That's a
you're,
very large
That's
discussion.
what I'm saying.
Gelman is
How the
complying
court-
with the
yeah.
CJ.
With the
And the
court
CJ
order.
didn't get the detail of you have to do this, except one time with the drilling, going deep.
Right.
So they're in compliance with the CJ, and as you guys complained, CJ says stuff's allowed to move off the property, contamination to go into the restricted area, it just can't do certain things out of the PZ. And so that's basically to force other stuff to say you have to go to bedrock here, that was not part of the CJ, and in contamination, a lot of contamination we know is there. It'd be great to know what that is, my opinion, like I said, but the CJ allows them not to really have to do that as long as they're in compliance with what the requirements are to keep people from being exposed to the dioxane related to Gelman. So that's kind of a layer that really hampers us, you know, I mean, for administering and regulation. So just realize that. So.
By the way, GSI 8601 is probably the only well that goes to bedrock at the core. according
And
to-
I don't remember, where's it, what's it next to?
Well, it's right here,
Okay.
it's right next to building 2, or, no, it's right next to the warehouse. Well, it's right next to the church right now.
So we have less than 15 minutes. Do we want to move on? Number 5?
Sure. Because I'm gonna take Dan's quarterly report and post it in a way that we can make comments on. I'll put my comments on it, then share it with the core group. And everybody can, by doing that, they can add their own comments. And then once the comments are in, we'll share it with Dan.
Then you've got 20 minutes, 14
Well,
minutes.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I just entered some issues here that I think, we could start discussing. I think some of it has been supplanted by this Senate Bill 1244 that MLive has said it could curb the state's ability to consider scientific studies on the health impacts of toxic chemical exposure beyond those used by the US EPA. And so that then went on to say, so for example, PFAS would not be included if this passes as a chemical concern for the state of Michigan. The other issue could be that 85 part per billion could be the number that they go back to instead of 7.2, because EPA has not even designated 1,4 dioxane, and it's Irish, as far as I know. It's Irish descriptions. So if this passes, I guess, has it passed the Senate? Sure. I think
Yeah, based on the analysis that I saw, pass the Senate today.
passed the Senate today, so it goes to the
And
House.
It was enrolled. It's enrolled for the House. I was.
So this is a senator from Midland proposed this. He said he was in close conversation with the law firm working with Wolverine and another.
He does a lot more than that too. If you go on the
Okay.
legislative website and read the
So what are your
legislative
concerns when you?
Well,
when you-
what's your summary?
Officially, I have no concern.
What's your
Again,
summary of what its impact would be on?
The DEQ.
Well, it allows a review panel, which is already in there now,
Right.
but the review panel's preview is only to a decision that's made by the department. A specific decision, say a response to no further action. Based on what I've read, it would allow them to go to the review panel for any dispute.
Right.
Any dispute. So even if I were to say, hey, that's not enough information for me to make a decision, they could go to this panel, dispute that I don't think you have enough information.
It's being fast-tracked in the House.
And
I'm just looking at the bill history. It's already, they
This
read
is
it,
a
they
lame
referred
duck,
it to the
yeah.
committee, yeah.
So where do we go, can we do like,
They could go down there tomorrow.
we go occupy the
Yeah.
Capitol building?
This is like Wisconsin,
Probably.
they just. take over the state.
Well, I was in Lansing all day doing exactly that. I worked with some of the
Do we
organizers
need-
of
do
the
we
big
need to
rally
get
there.
the
You
masses
won't change
up?
hearts and minds that way. If you can get people who are the constituents of the Republicans to call them and email them, and most of all, contact Governor Snyder. He actually, on this one, it's about science, it's about evidence,
Mhm.
and it's about data. He might veto it.
Yeah.
And everyone can email him and write to him.
Call his office.
That's
Call his
important.
office.
That's
Actually, he's shut
important.
down his email, he's put email.
It's
So
about-
call his office or write to him.
It's about developmental problems. It's about penis size. You read that, right?
Don't put that in the letter.
PFAS causes developmental problems in boys.
Yeah, just put email. This will be business turned out, so.
So, yeah, so it could be a big deal for Michigan.
It's a huge deal.
Yeah. Now, I don't know, I guess the other question is, can the next governor make a change to that?
Not with the legislature.
So could the governor, the new Governor Whitmer, reverse any of this?
Not with the current legislature.
Well, it's a legislature.
Yeah,
Yeah, but the legislature will still be, it's still Republican Senate and House.
Yeah, she'd still have to go back and get someone to nominate a new bill to change this one. She
Yeah,
would
there's no
have, she wouldn't have
executive
veto
order.
power over it, because that would already have it.
Right.
So there's no executive order she could issue?
That I don't know. You would know better than I do, but I.
Yeah, you're getting into constitutional, state constitutional
Yeah,
law,
yeah.
is way above
Yeah,
that.
that's, yeah.
No,
Me too.
because this, yeah, it'd be serious if it passes, and it looks like it's gonna pass. You know, this is like a lame duck effort to, you know, tie the new governor's hands and prevent changes in government. You know, even though we've
Tie
got
the hands
elected
of people
officials.
trying to do the right thing in the DEQ, frankly. I mean, I just,
It's an extra concern because it's happened in Wisconsin and it's two of the states in the Great Lake Water Compact.
Yeah.
And the protection of the entire Great Lakes is at risk with these, you know, lacks.
Well, there's still 4/5 of the world's fresh surface water somewhere else.
Yeah, well, you know.
So the other issue I wanted to bring up was that with the new governor, at the EPA meeting, it came to our attention that the governor basically prevented a full evaluation, Superfund evaluation of the site. So we're gonna get a new governor. So it behooves us, I think, to petition this new governor to support a Superfund evaluation and not throw a wrench into the process and just stop it dead in its tracks for no apparent reason other than for political or whatever the reason was. It made no sense. So the EPA, you know, the initial evaluation of this is pretty high. It's like off the chart. And that was even with a partial evaluation. I don't even think it was a 10% evaluation. They didn't look at a lot of different factors when they did this initial evaluation. It was like way over the number required to go to the next step. And then, I didn't know this, but they discussed this at the EPA meeting, that it was the governor that stopped the EPA from going forward. So if we want to petition our new governor to have an EPA evaluation, I think we should do that. I think that, and we need to start working on that. Shouldn't take office till January.
Do it now.
Yeah.
Go to michigantransition.org. There's a place to put your comments in. There's an environmental policy action team already existing, headed up by Michelle Martinez, who's with the Detroit Climate.
So what's the name of that
And
office?
Just michigantransition.org. Put your comments there and put your position, and they are listening. They're incorporating all this into their policy action plan.
Got that?
I see it right there.
Whatever, but specifically what he was talking about.
So the other issue,
Which is the
the other issue
full
with
EPA.
with this
Very
transition.
helpful information, thank you.
Okay, so she's gonna be appointing probably a new DEQ director. I think we should also petition to have Part 201 changed. Part 201 is a very weak environmental law for the state of Michigan, and it would be, you know, they used to have a polluter pay law, but the Republicans got into office under John Engler, and they scaled it way back. And I think, you know, we need to talk to our representatives about, both local and state, about reevaluating Part 201, because Part 201 does not protect the state of Michigan. It's pretty clear. Even former DEQ staff members who actually worked on this site said that they don't believe that the state law is protective of the citizens of Michigan. And I think we need to start working on our new governor to make some of these changes, because the previous governor did. Now, they had more support. She's going to have a slightly Republican Congress. It's not a huge majority, and maybe we can get some of the Republicans to go along with us. So that's something else we need to look at, I think, and start planning on petitioning our government to make Part 201, either get rid of it completely or come up with a better way to manage contamination in the state of Michigan, because it's, Dave Dempsey was quoted in the newspaper saying it's like a zombie sites all over the state of Michigan. They're just rearing their heads and coming out of the ground. And there's just, thousands of them.
And a lot of these PFAS sites are in Republican districts, so they might be more.
Yeah. Actually,
Are you, Vince, excuse
I think
me,
it's-
are you suggesting individuals, or are you suggesting
Well, we need to
that
start
CARD draft a letter under CARD's letterhead?
Both, let's should do both.
I think it's up for discussion.
I think
It's up for
everybody should
discussion.
do it.
Whether we do it or not should be discussed. That's why I'm bringing it up
Well, I think we ought to
now.
flex our muscles once in a while, or we're just gonna get too weak.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, I would agree with that. I think CARD, has some traction.
What were you gonna say?
Well, I just think that, you mentioned that a lot of the PFAS sites were in Republican districts. And I have heard a politician that I like, discuss water as being a very unifying thing that cuts across everything. It cuts across, whether you're pro-gun or anti-gun, a hunter or not a hunter, whether you're a Republican or Democrat.
Fishermen or not a fisherman?
That's right, and so it is a way in which, Democrats and Republicans can actually talk to each other and work together if you just talk about water, and I think it's really true. I think that it's a good theme.
It's something that we have 2/3 in common
And
with every living human.
So this one politician was talking, he's local, and he was campaigning all over the state, and why he's campaigning all over the state, because he's in the state legislature. And he said, if I help these people get elected, I want to pass some laws. Now I can go to them and I can say, hey,
Payback.
all right, good times we had just before the election. But his pitch all through the state has been water.
Yeah.
And so I do think, anyway, I do think we need to do something. I just don't know what to do. So
Would you
it's
guys
good to
like
hear some
draft something?
suggestions. Sorry?
You two like to draft something for the next time?
Well, I have 2 grants due.
Oh, so you can't do it.
I'm like nuts.
So if the letter's drafted, contact me,
Yeah.
I'll get you connected with Michelle Martinez, who's the head of the policy action,
Okay.
environmental policy action team for the Whitmer administration. And she's who we want to send it to if it's in the next 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
Well, I also have
This is-
good rapport with the state Sierra Club. So I've talked to them at length over the last 2 years about what we're facing in Ann Arbor. They're very involved in Lansing. They're very well schooled. They know a lot of these overriding issues about the state constitution and those kinds of things. And they're very interested in what's going on in Ann Arbor, and what kind of things that because we are one of the biggest Sierra Club groups in the state, 3,800 members.
So
So,
if they
yeah.
haven't already sent their letter in, and I think they may have, get them to include this issue in their letter.
Okay.
The more it's
Yeah,
heard from
yeah.
different sources, the better,
All right.
is my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. Roger, it's 8 o'clock.
Yep, it's 8 o'clock. I think we made it through everything.
Yep.
So everybody, thanks for coming. Look for an email from me in the next few days, sometime before my
This law is just.
operation next Thursday.
Yes, best wishes.
Well, good luck with that, Roger.
Thank you, Dave.
I'm sure
What are you gonna have to do?
nobody's died from this operation.